already heard, we're PVA's employment program, so we assist veterans, transitioning service members, families, caregivers on any barriers to employment. We focus on high-touch engagement with our clients, one-on-one support based on what their goals are, so anything employment, educational, volunteer opportunities. One of the cool things about this job is I help people from like all different backgrounds. So it could be someone who's going into cybersecurity or a nurse or someone who's looking for a part-time job. I mean, it's just all across the board. So we're located across the country. Even if you're not close to one of our locations, we cover territories. So I'm in Richmond, Virginia. PAVE Connect is what you're doing today. You're interacting with us through virtual meetings. You're going to access timely, relevant career information on your schedule and discover meaningful education, volunteer, and employment opportunities. So coming up within the next month or so, we're actually going to have some employers on here, which is going to be pretty exciting for those who are looking.
Absolutely.
And then some other programs that PVA has. Obviously, we're the PAVE program. We have medical services, which engage on VA quality of care, an architecture department, service officers, education and research, and legal services. So to access federal positions, most of them are located on usajobs.gov. There are a few organizations that aren't located on there, such as like CIA, National Geospatial, USPS. Those are just a few off the top of my head. But almost all of them are going to be located on USA Jobs. So here we are at USA Jobs. If you see in the middle section, they have an entire section for open positions due to COVID-19. Some of them are like nurse, doctor, PA, and some of them are other positions, such as like the Small Business Administration is looking for loan advisors. So there's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot of people hiring. The ones for COVID tend to be short. They're open for a shorter amount of time. So you just have to look and apply when you see it. So when you start, if you've never created a USA Jobs profile, this is for you.
Right.
So what you need to do is click on sign in, which I've indicated with the red arrow at the top. It'll bring you to this screen right here. You will scroll down and you will see create an account. Now, if you already have an account, this would be exactly where you sign in and put your password in and then click sign in. So, but since we don't, we're going to create an account here. You enter your email address, which I've done, and click submit. And then it will send you an email to that email address, and you will have to verify it. So I've gone into my email, and I've received the email here, and I'm going to click on the blue confirm email address. We'll go back to USA Jobs, and it will give you that nice little green check mark at the top saying that it's, your email address has been confirmed, and now you need to make a strong password. If your password is good, all the green sections at the bottom will light up green, and it will say that it's great. So generally that includes a special character, a capital letter, and a number. So after that, you'll have to do an authentication process, like with most like banks and other websites now. USA Jobs gives you quite a few options. You can get a code. You can get a text message or phone call sent to your phone. If you're a government employee, you can use your PIV card, and then you can also get backup codes. So most of the individuals I work with, we tend to do text messages or phone calls. That seems to be the easiest. The backup codes at the bottom, they give you a series of 10 different codes, and it's like capital letters, lowercase, numbers, special characters. It's too hard to remember. So that's why they consider that one to be the least secure. So I've selected the text message, and now we're going to continue. So for the text message, you'll enter your phone number in the screen, in the box, and then it will send you a code. You can pick phone call. Just make sure that whichever one you are picking, you're able to answer the phone. If you're in a place where you can't really answer the phone, then you might want to do text message. Currently where I work at a VA not today, but I work at a VA medical center. So I can't actually get text messages or phone calls inside the building. So I would probably pick text message, walk outside and grab it and then come back in. So this is a text message that I received from USA Jobs giving me the code. That's what it'll look like. Make sure that you look at the code inside the text message, not the number where the code is coming from. And then you enter the security code in the box and click submit. So again, you'll see the green check marks at the top are going to be like your best friend. So here you'll see my phone was confirmed. And then you agree and continue since you're signing in for the first time. And then it will give you an email anytime your login has been used. So that just is like an extra additional security, letting you know that nobody's really logging into your account. If you see here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all the error messages too, because I would be very real with you. Not everything works perfectly the first time. So here, the nice thing about USA Jobs is it will generally highlight things in red, or you can just follow along to see what went wrong. So here I click on the blue box and go back to sign in. So it doesn't give me much option here other than to sign out. So that's what I went ahead and did. And then you go back, it'll take you back to USA Jobs and you click sign in again. And you go through the same process as before, your email, your password, and sign in. But this time, since we already created the account, we don't have to create an account. It will give you another text message with a code, and you'll have to enter that one in as well. And then as soon as you enter in the code, this is what you get. So because we haven't, as you notice, we haven't put in our name or anything other than our email address and our phone number, it calls us a guest, which you can see by the first red arrow. So in order to change all of that and get your profile ready to apply, you're going to click on the create and complete your profile, which is the second red arrow. So it'll pop up another box for you to complete your profile. So you click on the blue box and go from there. So the first step is going to be to tell us who you are. So this is really important because this is going to tell us what you're going to be able to, what hiring authorities you're going to be able to look for. So it has U.S. citizen, if you're a federal, current or former federal employee, if you're a veteran, military spouse, National Guard and Reserve, if you're a student, if you're a recent graduate, if you're a senior exec, if you're an individual with a disability who's using a Schedule A letter, if you have family overseas, Native Americans, Peace Corps, in land and base management. So you select whichever one applies to you. If you don't 100% know for sure based on what it's saying, you can always go back and change this, so it isn't a huge deal. So for the purposes of this, I am only considered a U.S. citizen. So that's what I've picked here. And it has you confirm. So you can confirm if you're a federal employee or veteran, or maybe you forgot to add something, you can do that here. So if you've entered something wrong, you can click no and let me change my answers, and it'll take you right back to the screen we were just on. Do you have any questions so far?
No, everything looks good. It's great.
Okay.
It's bad that, I've worked with people that I encourage them to apply for jobs with the VA and help with Schedule A, but never actually having gone through the screen by screen process of looking at what it takes to create an account on USA Jobs. So this is great seeing all this.
Okay, good. And so if you've made any changes or had to add anything, you can click continue too. And yeah, I find that too. I walk through with a lot of my clients, like with them sitting with me. So obviously right now that's kind of a little bit difficult. So I think this will be a good tool. We're obviously recording it, so it'll be a good tool to for other people to be able to use with their clients too. So the next step after you pick what hiring authorities you're going to apply for, it's going to take you to your contact information, citizenship, and work experience. They say it'll take about 3 to 5 minutes. I would say 3 to 5 minutes for each section. It can take a little bit of time. And that's another good point. Like this process, in all probably takes close to, I would say, 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how many previous jobs you've had and if you have everything ready available. So if you don't have that time to devote, that's okay. You can always log out and log back in and finish it. But it does take quite a bit of time. So we are going to start with contact information. So just like when you're applying for any job, it's going to ask name, address. I've used my work address for the purposes of this. It'll ask for a street address, postal code, all of that. Add your telephone number, and then we'll go on to step 2. So this one's going to ask citizenship. Are you a U.S. citizen, which I am? And then it'll ask if you've registered for selective service. And so those are the options I give. I'm a female, so I didn't have to register. The next step is one of the most important. It's only going to let you put in one experience right now. You'll be able to go in and enter more. So I always pick the most recent position and start there. So obviously I'm currently employed by Paralyzed Veterans of America. So I've included the address again, my job title. There is a box indicated by the red arrow that says that you presently still work there, so then that way you don't have to put in an end date, which should look similar to some of the other job applications I'm sure you've seen. You enter your duties and related skills, and then down at the bottom you're going to see salary, and it says optional. So my biggest suggestion for any USA Jobs application is to enter in every detail regardless of if it says optional or not. The reason I'm going to say this is because when you read over some of the USA Jobs descriptions, it asks for the salary, the hours worked, your supervisor, if they can contact your supervisor. So if you enter all that information up front, when you go to create a resume on USA Jobs, it'll automatically populate all the information for you. So I would highly suggest doing that, even though it says optional. Some of the job openings on USA Jobs, you'll get marked off points because you haven't added your salary or how many hours you worked, because you're not submitting the full application as they've requested in the job description.
Gotcha. Looks like Miss Linda has joined us.
Hi, Brian.
Oh, okay.
Morning, Linda.
Good morning, sir.
Hi, Linda. Sorry.
Hi.
I couldn't see, the screen didn't show me when you joined, but did you just join?
I did. I work with Brian at PAOVR as a business service representative, and actually took part in the other 2 sessions that were offered this week, which was really nice. You guys are doing a great job.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So we're going over how to make a USA Jobs profile.
Mm-hmm.
I've basically just, I've taken screenshots from like the creation, like from the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's going to be recorded so you can watch like the first half.
Great.
It's not super interactive because I'm just like showing you screenshots and walking you through it. But if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask. And I am Tiffany's coworker. I am in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. So we've started the profile. We've entered our contact information. We've also filled out our citizenship, and we filled out the hiring authority that we're going to be looking for positions under. So right now I'm adding my most recent experience into USA Jobs. When you start a profile, it only allows you at first to enter one experience. And then once you get past the original creation of the profile, you can add more. So that's kind of where we're at. And I was just mentioning that anytime it says optional, I would always strongly encourage my clients to add it. A lot of the postings on USA Jobs ask for how often you worked, how many hours you worked, who's your supervisor, if you can contact your supervisor, how much money you were making. So if you add it all up front, you don't have to add it later. So I always
makes
suggest
sense.
doing
Yeah.
it.
Great.
This current position I'm in is not a federal position. So if it was, it would ask additional information, which you'll see in a few of the next slides. So I'm going to save and continue. And again, I've been mentioning the green box at the top with the check mark is going to be your best friend. That's how you know you're doing everything right and that you've completed it. So it has told me I'm done. I can now apply for jobs, but there's more we can do to help my profile stand out. And then if you notice at the top, my name has changed. It doesn't say guest anymore. It says Allison because we've entered the contact information in.
Okay.
So as you can see, it says finish your profile so more agencies can see me. So we're going to hit the blue finish profile at the bottom. This is what you're going to see. So we entered our address, email, we entered our citizenship, our hiring path, and we entered experience. Now, because I didn't select federal employee in the hiring authority, and I didn't select veteran, obviously they're saying no. So if you have inadvertently entered them wrong, you can edit them here. I was actually just working with a client recently who's a federal employee, and we've been applying for positions for quite some time. And I recently went in and looked at his profile because he's pretty proficient on it, doing it on his own. And it says I have not, and I've never been a federal employee. So if an employer is searching for their profile, it's going to be helpful that everything's filled out completely and to the best of your knowledge. So you'll also see we haven't entered education yet. There's demographic information. And I was a current federal employee, so I went back to edit it. So here I added, I'm a former federal civilian employee, but I don't have reinstatement eligibility, which is why I can't do the federal hiring authority. I wasn't a full-time employee. I was part-time, and it was a term position. So I don't qualify under that authority. But here I'm going to update it because I do have a lot of clients who tend to have had some sort of federal service in the past or are currently in federal service.
Okay.
So it asks if I was contracted, which I wasn't, and if I was displaced, I wasn't. It asks if you're receiving federal annuity, if you've accepted a buyout, and then it asks about your experience. So it asks for the career field, the highest grade you had, the series, what pay scale you had, and occupation.
Okay.
And then you can save your federal experience. So there's that green box again. And for the purpose of this, since I do work with a lot of veterans, I went ahead and edited military service. So I changed it to yes, just so we could see what some of the questions look like. So it asks about veteran preference. It asks about if you were separated, was it under honorable conditions within the last 3 years, or if you had a continuous duty for 3 years, because then you could, as it says here, you can use the VEOA hiring authority. Mm-hmm. If you are a current federal civilian employee, you can use the VRA appointment. And then if you're 30% or more disabled, that's another hiring authority. And then if you also are completing a VA training program. So then you can enter your service date. And then if you've had multiple duties, or maybe you were in the Guard and also in the Army, you can add the extra service dates there, and you can save your military experience. I went back and clicked no because I'm not a veteran, so I don't want anybody to think that I left it with yes. So I went back and hit no, and I saved my military experience. So now we're going to go back and add work experience. So because I was a federal employee, and since a lot of my clients have had federal experience in the past, I wanted to kind of walk through so people could see what that looked like. So I worked for the Birmingham VA Medical Center. I added their street address, postal code, obviously, city, and what my job title was when I worked there, and my duties. And I generally just copy the duties and accomplishments from the resume. because one of the really neat things about USA Jobs is it allows you to create a resume on USA Jobs. So if I've copied and pasted everything over from my resume, I can just, I can create one on here, which you'll see in just a little bit. Again, even though it's optional, I always try to add in everything. So I put my hours and salary rate, all of that. And then since it is a federal position, it asks for the agency I worked for, the series, and the pay scale. And generally, if you've had someone who's worked in federal employment, they will probably remember all of that. Sometimes they don't, like when I was going back and entering mine. I knew what the series was, but I couldn't remember what my job title was. And I know I have it on like a resume from like, 5 years ago, but I just didn't have it on me at the time. So my job title wasn't research assistant, although that's what I was doing. So I'll have to go back and change that at some point. My appointment was term, so it wasn't permanent. And my grade is there as well. It's a GS5. So you save your work experience as indicated by the arrow. And I have left all the error messages in so people can see what real life is when you're filling out a USA Jobs profile. So as you can see, I didn't get the nice green box at the top. I got the lovely red one. So as I mentioned before,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you were a Schedule A placement, would you be deemed a term employee or a permanent employee? Just out of curiosity.
It depends on the job that you've applied for. So when you go into USA Jobs and you look for a position, which I'll show you in a second, once you open up the position that you're looking at, if you scroll down a little bit, it'll give you like when the job closes and all that type of information. And it'll tell you if it's a term, temporary, or if it's a permanent position. So just because you're a Schedule A, it doesn't mean that you won't be a permanent employee unless you're applying for a position that isn't permanent, that's term.
Gotcha.
So it depends on what you're applying to. And I can definitely, after the presentation, I can like open up one and show you where you can find it, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay. So here, the thing I do like about USA Jobs, I feel like they do a pretty good job of letting you know what you did wrong. So when I scroll down, it highlighted everything in red for me. So I missed entering my because sometimes when, I'm sure you guys have experienced when you fill out job applications and something's wrong, it won't let you go to the next thing, but it doesn't highlight it well enough for you.
Right, it doesn't tell you what you need to do.
Yeah. So you're just like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, trying to figure it out. And it's normally like some little itty bitty thing, but it highlights it in red. So I fixed it and saved it. So here is some other sections in the profile: education and demographics. So as I mentioned before, even though it's optional, I definitely recommend filling them out. Filling in the education when you go to create your resume will automatically populate it. Now, demographics is the only section that is not going to show up on your resume. This is the section where it asks all the questions, like if you have a disability, if you're male, female, what's your race, all that. So those are not going to show up on the resume at all. But I still generally have my individuals fill it out as well. So we're going to fill out the education section. I went to Virginia Commonwealth University. That's where I got my master's at. I put in the date, the major, all of that, how many credits I earned, and then we go back to the demographic section. I don't think I took pictures of the demographic section here. It's a little bit more in depth than your average section on a job application, because it actually asks like what type of disability you have or like what category it fits in. Again, that doesn't populate on the resume though. And then it'll ask if you can speak like multiple languages, which is important for quite a few of the agencies. they can actually do if your profile is searchable, they can search. So like if they're looking for someone who's bilingual in Spanish, it's important to put it in there. If you belong to any organizations, and then the green sun is by references. So if you do put your references in here, again, it'll populate on the resume builder. So although, as I mentioned at the beginning, like this process can take like up to an hour, I feel like, sometimes more. If you're adding everything in now, when you get to the resume builder, it will add everything in and it'll be quick. So I always say like give like the hour at the beginning to make sure that your profile is really good and really complete. And that way in the long run, it'll be a lot smoother when you go to apply. So the next section, as you can see at the top, is documents. We completed the profile already. So the documents is where you're going to find your resume. This is where you're going to upload your Schedule A letter, your DD-214. If you're a federal employee, you'll upload your most recent like your yearly, I can't think of the word, but where they tell you how you've done. That you can enter there. And then if you're like a military spouse, sometimes depending on how you're applying, they'll need your marriage degree. And then also if you're PCSing or anything like that, you'll add those all in here. So we're going to start with the resume. So you click on the blue plus arrow to upload and build a resume. So as I mentioned, I'm just going to build it so you can kind of see what that process looks like. When you build a resume, it lets you do a resume name. I chose resume for this one, although I probably wouldn't advise my clients to do that. In most cases, like I would have them enter in what type of job they're applying to. So I have a few individuals who are like supply techs and who are looking for supply tech positions. So you have the opportunity to make up to 5 resumes. So if there's like 5 different job titles that you're currently searching for, I would generally just name the resume whatever the job title is you're looking for. So you can tell them apart. As I mentioned, we entered PVA, and then we also entered my position at the federal government. I obviously have work experience in between the two. So if you haven't already entered it, this gives you the option to enter it. Or maybe you have a position that fits more closely with, like, let's say the supply technician position that you didn't already enter, you can enter it here. Once you've entered all your work experience, you can click finish, and then it will automatically populate your resume. And if you see by the red arrow, you can click that box and make your resume searchable. So employers can search and see your resume and see if it's something that they'd be interested in. Preferences is my favorite section. This is kind of where you say where you're looking, what you're willing to do, but this will also change your search results, which we'll see in the next step. But everything you put in here is going to modify your job search results. So I've put I'm willing to travel, 50% or less. Obviously, there's lots of different options. So if you're not willing to travel, you can definitely hit no. If you're willing to relocate and other desired work locations. So obviously I'm here in Richmond. I'm from Chicago originally, so I wouldn't mind going back. And I'm pretty close to DC, so I put those. And then what type of work you're willing to accept. So these are kind of like when we were talking about Schedule A. So Schedule A isn't a specific type of work, but here's what they are. So when you look at a job, and we'll do that towards the end, it'll list what type of position it is in regards to this list. And then you can put what type of work schedule you're willing to accept, and then you can save your preferences. So as I mentioned, if you look at underneath the COVID-19 special hiring open positions, you'll see all of those green boxes. So all of the preferences I've just added are now a green box. So they are searching all the open positions that fit all of those preferences. So just for the heck of it, I added vocational rehab counselors just to see what was available. And there are no jobs in accordance to my preferences. So if this happens for anyone, I always recommend kind of like dimming down your preferences a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit too, you know, like you're kind of looking for the unicorn job. Like maybe you put too many preferences in and it's just like overwhelming it and nothing's fitting all of them. So instead, I took away the job title. So I took away vocational rehab counselor, but I've left in everything else. So now you'll see that there's 2,288 jobs that fit all of my preferences. This does not mean that I can apply to all of those. This doesn't mean that they are something I would maybe even want to do, but that just shows you how many fit within your preferences. On the next slide, I have changed it, as you can see on the right-hand side by the yellow arrow. I've made it only open to the public. So because that's how I'm applying, and you'll see it cut them in half, a little bit plus, but about in half. And then I've added the GS level. So because of my master's degree, I can do like a GS 9 to 11. So I've added the GS level, and you'll notice that now there's about 406 jobs. To save a job, you can see on the right-hand side, there's like a little star, and it says Save Job. You'll also see here, right underneath the Save Job, you'll see the starting salary, the GS level, and then you'll see it's permanent full-time. So that's how you're going to be able to tell what type of position you're applying for. For this purpose, I wanted to save the job just to show that you can go back and it'll be in your save section and you can apply for it that way. So I've clicked the star, and now you can see I have one saved job in my profile. When you go to apply, you can go to your saved jobs, click on it, and click apply. And then that's like the next step. So I will go through this, and then I'll open up a USA job so you can kind of see it. So if you have any other questions or kind of like any other things you're interested in, some of the additional PAVE Connects are located on our website. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I also do one about applying for a federal position. So it like walks you through what you need to add, make sure you have all your supporting documents, things like that. So I've already done that, and I'll do it again probably coming up in the next few weeks.